Hello, and welcome to Voicing Artists Original Characters. This is another episode where we're going to be speaking to an artist and giving life to their character in what we see as their personality and their voice based on the drawings. Now, this episode, we are working with this cute little owl girl named Susie. She is our character for this episode, and you can see from some of the drawings on the screen that she is adorable. She's so cute. I love her very much. I also love this art style, and I really like the colors that are involved with Susie because you often don't see colors like this. Usually there are things that are a lot more poppy, a lot more brightly colored. But before we get into what I see in the drawings and things of that nature, let me tell you who she is from. So, Susie is by this artist here named Deanna, and go and follow them because every artist that allows me to work with their original character is amazing for letting me to work with them not only live on stream but also for episodes that go onto my YouTube. They are incredible. You can see all of the amazing artwork they have here. Their main OC here, I believe, is Flana. She's this adorable moth girl. She's so cute. I love her big eyes and things like that. You can see her in a lot of these drawings. And when I was working through what characters I would possibly want to voice, the reason why I didn't pick the main OC is because I often like to go in and find characters that don't have a lot of backstory and don't have a lot of history necessarily. Sometimes even that don't have more than one drawing. Now in this case we do, but I didn't get any history or backstory for Susie, so we'll be able to make up a lot of it ourselves. And I'm going to stay away from anything that has sort of been put into canon for other characters, although one of the other characters here does get shown in one of the drawings we have for Susie. But I really like to play and just sort of imagine what circumstances may occur. Even if they're not quite canon to anything, it's really fun as an actor to be able to be like, what could I put them in and how would they respond? But go follow the artists, they're amazing. Our character's name is Susie. And she is sort of a owlet or an owl girl, if you will, kind of like a cat boy or a cat girl. She's an owl girl. Although I would say she's much more of an anthro than maybe some cat girl, cat boy, e-girl, e-boy style things are, where they just sort of have like ears and then the rest of them are human. I think Susie's much more anthro. She has actual wings for her arms and actual huge talons and bird feet down at the bottom, and she's got sort of the horns or the feathers that come out at the top, and her whole face is closer to what I would say is owl-like or bird-like, rather than being an anthro where it's a human, but like with little ears and stuff. So I think this is more on the furry side of anthro, which I adore. We love furry representation. Thank you very much. But she's also sort of in that territory. So with Susie, one of the things that I think stands out right away from other characters that people have as their OCs is Susie's color palette. Susie's color palette is brown, tan, cream, yellow, and you can see over here where the leaves are in the image, that is meant to represent the colors that are in this drawing. It goes so far as to be almost a dirt strong brown on her feet, and then there's sort of this reddish brown tint in the clothing / stomach area. And then we get a bit more of the yellows and the creams and the peaches in the rest of her body. And her feathers and fur? I suppose it could be feathers or fur. We've got the feathers on the wings or the arms and the tail feathers, of course. But the rest of it could be anything. Who knows? But we'll say feathers since she is a bird here. Those colors sort of all mix in here. And oftentimes when you use a color palette that is more of a neutral shade of tones or tones that lean into these yellow and browns, you have to be careful because you don't want it to get drowned out by everything around it. right? And when you're not using super bright colors, oftentimes it's not the first thing the eye will go to, because the eye's gonna go to the pink and the blue and the purple and the green. And so when you put your character with other characters that are those colors, or in backgrounds that are those colors, they aren't necessarily going to be the first thing that people see. They're not necessarily gonna pop as much. But I actually think that's a representation of Susie. I think this color palette actually represents the way that I see her, in that I don't think she's the first one to pop up and be like, ooh, me, right? I don't think she's the one to be standing out exuberantly from the crowd. I think this sort of subtler color palette fits the way that we are going to make her personality, where she's a bit more, not necessarily in the shadows, but softer, a bit more in the background than maybe a brighter color palette would give her. I also want to note, oftentimes when you have a color palette like this, you will see tiny little bits of bright colors that complement these types of colors put into the character design. So oftentimes something like her beautiful ribbon bow would be a bright pink or a bright blue or a bright green, or her eyes would be one of those colors, or maybe her claws or the two feathers on her head. There would be something about her that has a bright color in the character design so that it pops and it stands out and it brings you a little bit more towards her. It brings you like, oh, that's cute. I like this sort of design. But there is none of that at all. There's not even a tiny pop of bright color. And again, I love this because even her outfit is saying, I'm fine. I'm fine right where I am. I don't need to move. I don't need to change. I live and breathe here. I'm not in the front. I'm not in the back. I'm just neutral. And I love this. I'm also a sucker for browns and blacks, if you can't tell. Your girl's a punk. Your girl's a little goth punk. So I love the darker colors, and I love seeing these sort of more brown, maroon, red shades. Love that stuff. So I'm a bit biased, but I think it speaks to her as well. So let me pull up some of the things that I noticed here. Okay, so from these drawings, I took some notes about Susie. And what I get from these drawings is that she is full of wonder. That is the big front-facing forward thing that I think is really important with her, because I love this little one that's up in the top right, that's sort of like a profile drawing. That expression is so like, oh, like how owls give you those big wide eyes, right? And they're constantly looking that way. Owls constantly either look like they are surprised or scared or curious because of how big and wide and open their eyes are. And that is what this corner image of her face is giving to me, where she's giving us those big eyes of curiosity. But she's not scared, she's not nervous. It's more of a, what was that? What's going on? Blah, 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 right? It's open, it's curiosity, it's wonder, and I love that. So I really want to take that into her character. I also think you can see it here with the little question marks that are happening down in the right corner when she's sort of in this crouched owl position, which I love this pose because this is true like I am a bird energy, because that's just how they stand and how they function. And so, and I love that her face sort of goes from like, oh, I am detailed face to like it squooshes, right? It does the cute little chibi thing where it goes It's so cute. A little beep meep, whatever you want to call it, type of face. But I love that she sort of just gets down and low and squishes, and everything about her squishes. And the question marks with it give me that same concept of interest piqued, of curiosity. Curiosity might have killed the cat, but I think the bird is thriving, okay? Because even in this little like meep pose where she's tiny and she's squished and she's sort of gone into bird mode, her eyes are still really big, and they're also looking off to the side. So this is still a bit of like, okay, you know, maybe I'm going into bird form, maybe I'm like closing myself off, but also what's happening? But also I'm still looking at you, right? So it's not just completely shutting yourself away, also still engaging at the same time. I love that she has these almost like puffy cheeks. This whole design of her face with a bit more puffy cheeks, the wide open eyes, even the mouth that's a little bit open to be like, it's pointed a little bit to be like a beak, which is clever since she's an owl, but it's still open, right? It still has a bit of the type of energy for when you're hearing something suddenly or wanting to go check something out, your mouth drops a little bit and opens. All of this is here, and I think it's really excellent in this drawing. I think it's shown crazy well. So along with full of wonder, I have open to new experiences. I think that comes along with it, right? She's curious, and she's not just curious like what is going on in a sideline way where she's like, I want all the juicy gossip. No. She's curious and open to whatever is occurring. It's never a negative thought process that she goes into with her curiosity. It's never a, oh no, what is happening? It's always a, oh, what's happening type of energy. So open to these new experiences. I have curious on here, of course. Inquisitive runs along with these of wanting to know what's going on and asking a bunch of questions. I think both in a literal sense and maybe in a more physical joins or puts themselves into the scenario sense. I also have, speaking of put themselves into a little scenario, a little meddlesome, but in a good way. So, what do I mean by this? Well, that is an excellent question. So what I mean by this is, let me pull this image up. This is Susie with another OC of Diana's, and this is where sort of the meddlesome but in a good way came from, is because I saw this drawing and you can clearly see that the guy holding all of the books, and there's other stacks of books behind them, right, is like, what are you doing? Like, he's very like, what the hell is she thinking? What is going on? Like, excuse me, you're supposed to be helping me, like, put away or organize or do something with this stuff, and you are standing there looking up to the sky in your own thought process, just like lost, like daydreaming yourself away. And so this makes me think, with her being like, oh, this and oh, that, and oh, I wonder what that does, and oh, what's going on over here, that sort of all over the place energy. If you pair that with the idea that she wants to be involved and she's so curious, then you get a little bit of combativeness. You get a little bit of butting heads because you know she means it in a good way. You know she wants to be helpful and she wants to be able to learn new things. But sometimes she can't help but get so distracted or so not helping with whatever she's supposed to do because of how curious she is about all these new things that maybe she can't quite focus. And so it ends up being a little bit troublesome and a little bit like, hey, I love you, but please go away. Like, I love you, but you can't help me with this, or I can't help you right now, or I would love for you to join me, but we both know that you're gonna like ask me so many questions and I'm not going to be able to focus. I think that's the meddlesome, but in a good way. She means it. She has good intentions. But unfortunately, good intentions don't always matter. Sometimes you can still be a nuisance. So I think that's where that comes from. So let me see what else I got here. Straightforward. I think with this inquisitive, sort of bubbly, all over the place nature, there's also a bit of a no filter. And I don't mean no filter as in the kind of way that sarcastic characters have, where they're making remarks and they're saying things that are a bit more like pointed and spiky. I mean it more as she's straightforward, as in if she has a question, she's going to ask. There's no hesitation, there's no feeling of shame, there's no feeling of maybe this would be inappropriate to ask, right? She just asks because it's pure curiosity and wanting to learn and wanting to experience. So this can go a little bit into the troublesome in a good way as well, but I think we have to be clear that if we're going to play with it, that it's non-malicious and it's very clearly a positive trait for her unless she accidentally oversteps a boundary. The other thing I would say is peppy. And there's a reason why I say the word peppy instead of something like happy or engaging or excited. It's because peppy to me makes me think bouncing up and down. Like how a bird, when they walk, bounces on their feet. That's what peppy makes me think. It's boop, ba-doop, 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 ba-doop. Like energy is up, things are excited, but in a continuously motionful way, where it's like very same sort of repetitious dun 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 boop 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 type of energy. And I think that's the type of curiosity that she has. It manifests itself in this bouncy nature. I also said sprightly or alert because those are two things that birds often have that I think we can pull into her as a character. Pull from this source material a little bit, is being very sprightly, which again is like sort of bouncy with a bit of a more tactician focus, where it's like, oh, ooh, ah, ooh, versus like boop, ba-doop, ba-doop. I don't know how else to explain that. So enjoy my language. And then alert is that birds often are very, very aware, especially owls, of every little thing that's happening. They might not understand it, they might not get it, but they are watchers. And I really think we should take that owl property of being alert and ready to go at a moment's notice, and the watchfulness of seeing everything and experiencing everything and being curious about it. So those are the main things that I saw with Susie. What we do now is we go into our 3 emotions. So our 3 emotions are going to be happy, angry, and sad. And we're going to create some dialogue lines, do some improv in order to embody those for Susie. Now, when it comes to a voice type, I think Susie's going to be a bit on the high pitch range. I think we want to give her sort of a voice that's almost scratchy, but not in a way that hurts your ears, more in a way that stays true a bit more to her bird/owl heritage, to where it's a bit of the squeakly, crackly, screechy noises that an owl or a similar bird might give. Now, owls, of course, are known for their hoo-hoos, which I do want to play with. I actually think that might be a good thing to add into her happy line here, is to do a play on that feature, right? So if we make the hoo-hoos in her happy line, I think that would be a fun sort of callback / tie-in to the owl nature of her. So we're going to do that. I think we're going to do it a bit more on the high end, because I want to tie that in with her very happy and curious expressions. And I think the bounciness will keep us a little bit more of a fast talker. And I think it will keep us a little bit more of brain goes from different thought process to different thought process. So if we tie in all these things, a little bit higher pitched voice, a fast talker, but also a bouncer from different thing to different thing. So the brain is moving. They're not just talking quickly. They're also moving from thing to thing to thing. And those thought processes might interrupt each other when she tries to speak. And we also do a play on the hoo-hoo for owls here. I think we might be able to do a happy line. So let's get a drink. Okay. Whew. So, a happy line for Susie. And I want to use these who's. So I think I'm going to make this line more curiosity based. I'm going to make it along the lines of maybe someone arrives or some new people are here in whatever friend group it is. She's meeting new people, or they've arrived at the party, whatever the case may be. And I think it's going to be a little bit of who did that, or who are you, or who is that, blah, 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 blah. So let's see if we can do something like that. Let's see here.
Oh, someone's here already. Who could it be? Who is at my door? Hello, you must be the new friends. Oh, come on in, please come on in. Make yourselves at home. I have snacks on the counter. I have water in the fridge. Oh, I'm making cupcakes as well, but they're not quite done yet. Do you have a preference? Does anyone want something other than water? I can get it if you like. I don't have a lot of ice, though. I hope that's okay. Oh, please feel free to sit anywhere, and you can put your coats and your bags and everything anywhere, okay? I'm really excited you're here.
Oh, I love that. She's so cute. But I really like that for Susie, because I think it captures a bit of the peppiness, sort of the bounciness that she has. And we got to do the little owl puns with the who. And I definitely think she's someone who like sings to herself out of the energy that she gives me and the bubbliness that she gives me. I think she would sing to herself and maybe give herself little mantras about the day. And then once she met these people, she started being like, oh, let me tell you all the things so that you also feel comfortable and happy, right? Like, here's the food, here's the water. I don't have ice, but we can do this. Cupcakes are on the thing. Please put your things there, blah, 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 right? And I liked how it naturally came about as well. Because if you remember before we did the line, when we were talking about things that we might consider for a voice, we did go high-pitched. We went relatively high. And we also gave her sort of the fluffiness and the, I don't want to say screech, although I already have, so I guess I will say it again. The place that she's at in my body with that voice isn't just high, right? Because
I can do a high voice that's up here as well.
And it's basically the same voice. But the thing that we were adding to do a bit more of like this bird scratchy screechy sound is that you could hear there were points when I was doing the dialogue where it almost cut off. Like you almost lost what she was saying because it feels like it went into like she doesn't have vocal cords there. Because there was a bit of like sort of sounds on the end of it. And it's very subtle. It doesn't often come through, but I think it comes in a subconscious way that helps us stick with the voice a little more, where she's almost out of breath or almost sort of going into the beaky nose territory where it's like, oh, it's starting to scratch because it's not quite there. And so we brought that in. We were fast during that point where she was talking to the people about where they could eat or where they could sit or things like that. We were quick. And we did have the thought processes jump from one thing to the other, like we wanted it to. However, I will take a note that when we started it, she was actually quite calm and quite slow. And I love that that came about naturally and organically, because that's not what we planned. We had planned to be fast the whole time. But I like that that came about organically in the beginning because I think it speaks true to her character. Because we have to remember that as much as she has curiosity and she's fast and she's bubbly and she's peppy, and she sort of jumps all over the place, she's also still got roots in that owl, in that watchful, seeking, viewing, monitoring, waiting owl. And I think that's where the calmer and the slower bit came at the beginning, where she doesn't necessarily need to be on alert or ready to jump at any moment. She can, but there was a bit of that slowness that came with sort of the watchful waiting of the owl in the beginning until people arrived, and then it was everywhere. So I really like that for her. So that means our next emotion is angry. So what is going to make Susie angry? Now, we don't really have an angry drawing. Most of the drawings we have are either sort of smiley and excited or wonder-filled with the curiousness of her eyes and her facial expressions. But we may be able to use this bottom right drawing for a bit of her angry emotion and a bit of her sad emotion. Now, it doesn't capture those exactly because, again, she's still got a bit of the curiosity in here. And I wouldn't say that either of these are particularly angry or sad in the pose. So what I mean when I say we're going to use this image is we're going to take a bit of the body posture and sort of go from that mentality of how does that affect the emotion that we're at and the way that we're speaking. Especially as I'm a physical actor, the idea of she is suddenly coming into this pose where she's like gearing up with her legs, because bird legs are incredibly powerful and their talons are really strong. So she's in this position where it's almost defensive, like the wings are coming up to shield her body, her legs and feet are in a ready to pounce sort of energy, and she's just looking over to make sure that she's keeping an eye on whatever is coming towards her. So that sort of ready to pounce energy but still closed because you haven't released it yet can help a lot with these two emotions, because anger and sadness can start from a place of I need to release this, and then you go ooh, and you pounce and both are exploded. So let's try this for anger. I think that's a good idea to go from. So now the question becomes, what do we think would make Susie mad? Well, Susie is all about wonder and awe and trying new things and having new experiences and doing all of this in a positive light, in a opening up to the world and its environments and its people and their loves and creativities. So, if that is what makes her happy, is having new people join her, learning of her regular friends' things, just being involved and experience things is what makes her happy, then I think maybe, this is interesting, because do we think being bad at something she's trying for the first time would make her angry? Because I'm not certain that it would. So I think she's so invested in just openly living and breathing and trying that I don't know that she would care if she can't particularly do it well. We might go a classic stereotype way with this. Now, of course, I mean that in a good way. What I'm thinking is there are characters that are so loving and open and excited about the world that what makes them angry is when other people don't like them. They don't like their energy, they don't like their being, they don't like their personality, to the point where it's not just standoffish, but it's actively like, yo, I don't want anything you're gonna give me, I'm not open to you, and there's nothing you can do to change that. Like, I actively dislike you. And there are a lot of more of the peppy, positive characters that can have this frustration at people not liking them. And I think maybe Susie might fall into that. And I think it's less of, everybody has to like me. And it's more of when you give and give and give this energy to people, and all you want to do is make them smile, all you want to do is have them enjoying things with you, all you want to do is learn and experience the things that they know, and that kind of an energy, that when somebody straight up is like, not only do I not want you here and I not want you involved and I'm not going to give you any information whatsoever, but I actively don't want you to try. It's like how it can be upsetting when you want to help somebody, but they refuse to help themselves. Because you want this person to succeed and to feel good and to be happy and to feel loved, but they won't let you. They won't let you, and they won't let themselves be happy, and they won't try to fix whatever's happening. They just refuse, right? And so I think that would make her intrinsically angry to have somebody who refuses to help themselves and refuses to let her help them. So let's try this here.
Can't you just stop it for once? All I want to do is hear about you. All I want to do is help you to smile. And yet every day, no matter how hard I try, you walk in and you frown. Do you know how frustrating it is to want you to be happy more than you want to be happy? Well, it's frustrating, okay?
That's so cute. Oh my god. It's like when the little Squishmallow character gets angry and they just kind of go, pow. It really fits with that squished profile of her in the right corner, but I like that because it's a bit of a pouty angry, but it's still angry. And oftentimes the happier characters will go into a pouty angry because they don't know how to express their frustration and their anger without also feeling defeated. Because pure anger is just rage. It's pure and unadulterated. I do not like the thing that is happening. Whereas more happy characters tend to be a bit more defeated in their anger. They tend to be a bit more frustrated. They tend to be a bit more pouty because there's an energy of, I don't like what's happening, but I am consistently a positive person, so I know that this isn't just I hate you. I know there's a workaround. I know there's a way to get this thing to stop, but I cannot express what it is besides right? So that tends to be how the happier characters experience their anger, and I think that fits for Susie. I quite like it, to be honest. Which means the only one we have left is sadness. And this is gonna suck because making the wonder-filled, curious, happy character sad is the worst. You have to make Susie sad. What's going to make Susie sad? You know what? I might have an idea. Okay. So, I think if we go back to this idea that someone has let her try and be helpful and let her into their world, and her curiosity is sort of taking over where she's doing that sort of being troublesome and meddlesome without meaning to, I think that the person might have a negative reaction to her, and that might make her sad. Because if what makes her happy is just getting to engage and be a part of all these things, and what makes her angry is a person not just shutting her out, but also saying, I also refuse to engage, because that makes her angry, then I think what makes her sad is when a person said, okay, you can be engaged, I will engage with you, but the way that you engage has now made me upset. Because I think what it does is it takes the responsibility of her and it places it back to her. Because in angry, she's angry because the responsibility of the other person, they are not taking. It is kind of, in quotes, their fault. They are the reason she is angry. Whereas I think to make her sad, she has to be the reason that someone else is angry, because she never wants to be that, right? She never ever wants to be the reason that someone else is upset. That's not her goal, ever. She always comes in with good intentions. So I think it would make her sad to know that that is what has occurred despite her good intentions. So let's go with this idea of she was trying to help someone in some way, and they are like, you're not helping, please leave. And this is sort of her sadness in response to it. So, okay, I think I have an idea. Let's try it.
Yeah, I'm sure I can help with that. Don't worry. Well, if I'm not good at that, I know I can go over here and I can... But I just want to... I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make it harder. I just... Okay. Well, I'll just leave you alone, okay?
Oh. What's interesting about that one, besides the fact that she's sad, what came across in the voice, which is one reason why I love improv and I love creating characters and personalities, is that something occurred that was not planned and just felt natural and organic with Susie. And that was the noises. And it kind of harkens back to our first line with Happy, where she was doing the hoo 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 type of thing. This is another version, almost a more bird-like version of the hoo sound, where they make those noises and those sounds. And because she was sort of getting sadder and being more let down and more heartbroken, it's almost as if it started reverting back to the bird-like nature, to the nature of these are instinctually what I am and what I've made of. And it's not conscious, right? It would never be conscious. But for that to organically appear when she starts to get emotional, that these more animalistic features come out, is really interesting. And I think it speaks to the way that she's drawn and how potent the owl nature of her has fed back into our portrayal of her. And that's really cool. All right, my friends, that is the end of this episode. We've had a great time, or at least I've had a great time working with Susie. I love doing these characters a lot. So what I will say is, once again, I'm gonna pull up Diana's Instagram here. Okay, so make sure you go and follow Diana and do all that you need to do so you can experience her OCs and the rest of her OCs as well. And I thank you very much, Diana, for letting us use this character here today. It's been a lovely, lovely time. I record these episodes live on Twitch. Hello, Twitch. Every Monday, 9 p.m. EST. And I encourage you to join me. Help me figure out voices and personalities and different details. And if you have an OC that maybe you want me to voice or play with, you can always reach out to me as well. I love to have new characters to work with. Don't forget as well to follow me on the Instagrams and the TikTok. And if you prefer to watch a polished version of these episodes rather than join me live on session, they also come out every Monday. So continue to join us whether live or on the videos. Our lovely editor Mordekys does a fantastic job. And you can also join me live for voice acting auditions, different board games, different regular games, acting advice, all sorts of things. All right, that's the end of the episode. Goodbye.